It's a battle on the rollout of the National Health Insurance, and you find us on day 2 of these High Court proceedings in Pretoria. Here, this is where COSATU members are already flocking into the High Court to demonstrate here outside in terms of their picket here in support of the Minister of Health and Government. Here at the crux of where you find us here, it's a battle on whether the NHI can coexist with medical health insurance. Hence we see the BHP that represents over 40 of these medical aid schemes and just coming through to challenge the constitutionality of the rollout of the NHI. And we know very well that at the center of where we find ourselves is Section 33 of the NHI Act that they've taken issue with, that more or less they find it really talking about how then the rollout is going to take place here, looking at an access to this universal health care. COSATU is here. They were here yesterday as well. They're joined by the SABC outside the High Court in terms of supporting government where the NHI is concerned. They're saying it's a race against time. We can't wait any longer. They want the NHI to be implemented now. I'm going to bring Zanele into the conversation now. Zanele is a spokesperson of COSATU who will just give us a sense of really where we find ourselves, where some of these issues are concerned. I know very well that we're inching to a year since the president more or less signed this bill into an act, and would have expected that by now things will start rolling. But we've seen all of these developments coming through. A lot of other people not happy with where we find ourselves, especially the BHP and other organizations, forums just coming through, whereby they're putting pressure on government to relook the rollout of the NHI in its current nature. Let's welcome you into the program. Give us a sense of where we find ourselves now. What is your understanding of why then there would be a pushback in this regard where NHI is concerned? And today marking, of course, day 2 of this High Court proceeding.
Okay. So today we're here because we are in support of government. The Department of Health have been taken to court by the Board of Healthcare Funders, BHF, and the South African Private Practitioners Forum. And so they're here today because they are saying that the NHI Act, well, it has been signed into law, is unconstitutional. So the central to today's proceedings and yesterday's proceedings is why bring it here? If you feel it is unconstitutional, why bring it to the High Court instead of taking it straight to the Constitutional Court? It is the Constitutional Court that conferred the powers to the President to sign these bills into law. And so why are we here? And so that is the crux of the Department of Health's argument in court. And so yesterday they made submissions and then the government side, well, the attorneys actually finished, and then now today what's going to happen is the lawyers for BHF actually also started their submissions, but then they'll conclude today, and then there will be a chance to rebut from the Department of Health's side. So they'll rebut. On our side, you're saying, but why? Why are we, like you said, it's a race against time. We can't continue to have these two health systems in the country. This country is like that. I mean, given our history, we have like two countries. We have the haves and the have-nots. It's one of the, inequality in this country is one of the worst in the world. And so that tends to continue. And you see that in the healthcare system, in that half of the budget services 16% of the population, while the other 84% is actually supposed to do with the other 50%. And so you see that effectively when you go to a private hospital, you're treated like you are in a hotel. There's a bed, there's 2 beds on either side of you, and you're waited on hand and foot. But when you go to the private sector, to the public sector, there are long queues, things don't happen right, people are complaining, there aren't enough beds, people are giving birth on the floor.
But won't we be fair to say that may be because of the lack of the rollout of service delivery in the way that it should have been rolled out in the public sector, that really when you look at it, there's a lot that needs to be done there in filling the gaps. Nurses have been speaking about the fact that there are these austerity measures that are taking place, and we've really not seen a lot of transformation coming from that space, because really linked to what is happening in the rollout of the delivery of services, but also at the same time the budget that would go into various of these departments. How do we balance it? How do we ensure as well that at the same time as we welcome the National Health Insurance into this space and we looking at also going into the private space as well, so to balance things. How do we ensure that these gaps that have existed in the past, they don't find a place in the future?
Hence the NHI, because it is as much as the private sector, people who have medical aid are the ones that access it, they still receive subsidies from the government. And so there's a lot more resources on the one side and a lack of resources on the other side. Talking about the budget, we're looking forward to it next week. We have argued against austerity measures. You know that yourself, that we have argued against austerity measures. We have said government needs to fill those very critical vacancies within government. That whole thing about, the public service actually draws out too much money from the budget. It's not true. There's only, it makes up 31% of the budget. And so we have argued for that. It needs to happen. But then at the same time, this whole thing about taking the NHI to court is stalling what needs to happen. So that needs to happen as quickly as possible so we can see implementation. I mean, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but we need to start seeing that rollout happening, and these court cases are not helping. And also take it to the right place so it can be, heard, and then the ruling from the Constitutional Court will take us forward. And so we think this is stalling, and this is adding to the time lapse that, is so unnecessary.
All right, and before we let you go, we know very well that we're still on jurisdiction. What are your expectations? Looking at the fact that you're supporting the ministry here and government, calling for this to be rolled out as a matter of urgency. What are your expectations as we go into day 2 of this court proceeding?
So we're expecting that, the other side needs to finish its arguments today, and then the chance will be given also to government's lawyers to rebut. And so what we are expecting is to see that this case actually gets thrown out of here, it goes to the Constitutional Court, and then we get moving. There are other cases coming through, but then we're hoping, because at the center of this is profit making, and unfortunately we cannot, anyone with a conscience cannot continue to want profit over people's lives.